Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Deku Was the Sun Hero. If you guys enjoyed this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. In the aftermath of the villain attack on the USJ, many things went into motion. Some of these things, like the parents of Class 1 being called and informed of the situation, were expected. Other things, however, happened behind the scenes with only those that needed to know being aware. Forensics of the USJ, along with interrogation of the captured villains, revealed a plot to upset the peace of Japan as a whole. After all, killing All Might, the symbol of peace, would undoubtedly start a spiral of chaos that the nation hadn't seen in decades. Unknown to the students, the battle between Izuku and the bioengineered weapon called Nomu, plus his defeat of the leader of the attack, had led to startling discoveries. The leader of the League of Villains, one Shigaraki Tomura, had lost his arms. The blackened flesh was beyond saving, even with healing quirks. Both of the villain's arms, from below the bicep, were amputated to save his life. The gray-haired man had been practically catatonic since the attack. The Warp Gate villain, Quirk, had not registered as a single person when DNA tests had been performed. The villain's results more closely matched the samples that had been extracted from the charred feet of the bioweapon, Nomu. Multiple people's DNA had been found in both Nomu and Quirk. Along with these findings, came the horrifying discovery of both possessing multiple quirks. With Nezu being the pro-hero that had taken on the case, to work on it with the police and offer his immense intellect, it was an easy matter to fill All Might in on the findings. I can't believe it, All Might's fist clenched tightly as he read over the report in Nezu's office. He's still alive, the near-skeletal man growled. Only one person had the ability to forcefully implant multiple quirks in people. All for One was still alive, even after Toshinori had done everything in his power to kill the monster. It would seem so, Nezu nodded as he prepared tea for the two of them. However, what is much more disturbing are these lab results from the Nomu and the Warp Gate villain, Quirk. Such genetic modification, and the various operations that both have gone through, speaks of professional medical training. A doctor with decades of experience, most likely. Is that how he survived? Toshinori blinked, looking up at the chimera-like principal. He had a skilled doctor to keep him alive. It is my current theory, Nezu acknowledged as he poured Toshinori a cup of tea, and then one for himself. But such skill is not something that just any doctor would have. On that note, to be able to create two bioengineered creatures, when capable of human-level reasoning and actions, is not something that any medical professional would simply learn. No, what we're dealing with is a medical professional that's not only had years of training and experience, but perhaps decades of illegal experimentation as well. Of course he'd find someone like that. Toshinori scowled as he picked up his tea. A sip did little to soothe his nerves, but it helped a tiny bit. Manipulating alpha factors and quirks to this degree though, merging quirks together. That's not something that can just be done. All for One must be providing assistance, while the doctor modifies the bodies of these Nomu creatures. Yes, the Quirk Nomu was an unpleasant revelation, to say the least. Nezu sighed heavily, knowing he'd need to bring Aizawa, Hisashi, and Imuri onto the case. None of them would be pleased at the previous identity of Quirk. It honestly made Nezu's stomach turn. Just knowing that this villainy had been going on for so long, it was unsettling. Young Midoriya is far more powerful than even I imagined after seeing him at the entrance exams. Toshinori moved the subject on, knowing that lamenting on the discoveries wouldn't do anyone any good. To think he resolved this incident almost single-handedly. When he goes pro, I think we'll have a bit less to worry about in the future. The blonde man smiled slightly. We can only guide him through his time here at UA, and put forth challenges to bring out his best. Nezu hummed with a grin of his own. His quick actions and sound defeat of this League of Villains has brought much to light that we were unaware of. Now is the time for us pros to go to work. The chimera gave Toshinori a serious look, one which was returned with a powerful gaze. Yes, it is. Toshinori's tone was powerful in its finality. Midoriya residence. Izuku had been picked up by his parents after the incident at the USJ, just like all the other students of Class 1A. His mother had fretted over him, even after seeing his worst injuries were mostly just some bruises and a small cut on the inside of his mouth. Recovery Girl had healed him in a matter of moments at the scene. But Inko and Hisashi wouldn't be his parents if both hadn't been concerned and worried. He held his mother for the majority of the rest of the day and into the evening, reassuring her as many times as she needed that he was fine and everything was okay. Hisashi had ordered food for the family and sat with his wife and son the whole time. Unbeknownst to Izuku, a similar scene was being played out in most of the homes of his classmates as well. Parents holding their children close and offering their ears to listen to their children's feelings. What all of the teens mentioned was that it was thanks to their classmate Midoriya that not a single one of them was hurt. Izuku was already being regarded as a hero among the parents of Class 1A. It was yet another heroic act that he was credited for without even knowing it. With classes cancelled for both Hero Course 1 and 1B the next day, the students had more time to come to grips with what they'd gone through. 1B was given the rundown on what had occurred at the USJ. Their own rescue training would be postponed until the following week. All systems at the USJ facility were being gone over and given new security in that time. During this day off, Toga had naturally come over to the Midoriya home to be with Izuku. Izuku's room. I'm fine, Himiko-chan. Izuku held his snuggling girlfriend closer, gently running his fingers through her blonde locks. I know, but you worried me. Toga mumbled out as she held him close. When I saw the explosion I panicked. Seeing you using that much power, it scared me. Knowing that someone among the villains was that strong and was pushing you that far, I thought I might lose you. She buried her head into his neck and breathed in his scent. I'm not going anywhere, Himiko-chan. Izuku tightened his hold on her and kissed the top of her head. I'm just glad you're alright, Izuku. Toga nuzzled him gently. But you have some making up to do for worrying me like that, mister. She huffed as they continued to hold each other while lying on his bed. I'm fine with that, Izuku smiled into her hair. I think I know a good way to start too. I'm listening, Toga grinned against his neck. Let's start with a foot rub and then after school one day this week we'll have a date to any place you want. Izuku gently squeezed Toga closer to him. Will that work? I think so, Toga giggled playfully as she pulled back to look him in the eyes. The two gazed warmly at each other. They moved closer without words and their lips met. It was a gentle kiss, filled with love and affection, promises of the future and all the time in the world. Both teens felt their hearts thrum in their chests as they pulled each other as close as possible. They both inhaled deeply when they finally separated. I love you, Toga Himiko. Izuku rested his forehead against Toga's gently. I love you too, Midoriya Izuku. Toga returned his love with all of her own. Let me get some supplies ready and we'll get to your foot rub. Izuku smiled at her. Toga giggled as she slowly let him go. Izuku knew how to pamper and dote on her. It made Toga love him all the more. Himiko and Hisashi could only smile as Izuku went about the kitchen and bathroom. He was clearly about to give Toga-chan a foot rub. The doting on his girlfriend he'd learned from his father, including foot rubs. It lifted worry and tension off both parents' shoulders to see the teens acting normally. At the very least the incident didn't seem to have traumatized the two. I'll make an extra place for dinner tonight. Himiko smiled brightly when Izuku went back into his room with his supplies. Toga-chan wouldn't want to leave after a good foot rub. Speaking of, maybe I should give you one tonight too. Hisashi offered his wife with a smile. I'm sure we could both use a little relaxation after what happened. Himiko giggled at her husband as he pulled her into his lap and kissed her cheek. Never let it be said that their marriage wasn't full of love, even after 16 years. UA High Principal Nezu's office. Do you know why you're here, Midoriya? Nezu asked the Verdette first year. I believe so, sir. Izuku nodded to the principal. Then are you ready to learn what your punishment will be for going off on your own in the middle of a crisis? Nezu looked at the teens seriously. I was prepared the moment I leapt into action. Izuku replied resolutely, more than okay with whatever happened. He didn't regret what he'd done. If given the chance to do it again, he'd make the same call every time. You'll be suspended for the rest of this week. Nezu began, his black eyes locked with Izuku's green. During that time you'll write a formal apology to both Aizawa and 13 for going off on your own during the villain attack. On top of that, you'll write an essay on the relevant laws that you technically broke with your actions for me. I think 5,000 words will suffice. Yes sir, I'll do so. Izuku gave a respectful bow to the principal. Very good, Midoriya, we'll see you back here Monday morning. Nezu dismissed the teen from his office. Thank you principal. Izuku rose from his bow and gave the chimera a nod. With that, the Verdette turned and left the office. Willing to act in crisis and also willing to accept the consequences of his actions. Truly he will be an excellent hero in the future. Nezu commented after the teen had left. There was a smile on the principal's face. Izuku texted Toga about his punishment, letting her know that he wouldn't be in class until Monday. Just as he suspected, Toga had ranted in her reply about the school being ungrateful, and that he should be getting recognition for his actions instead of punishment. He calmed her with several texts on his way off the campus. They only stopped when the bell for homeroom rang, and Toga had to pay attention in class. At hidden location, what do we do now? An old man with goggles, a lab coat, and a mustache, asked the man sitting in a chair and hooked up to a life support system. The man had the top half of his head marred by horrible scar tissue. His eyes were gone, along with his hair. The various tubes and wires connected to the man gave off the impression that he was at death's door. In contrast to the life support system, the man wore a tailored black suit that was clean and sharp. His appearance was such a contrast that one might make the mistake of believing this injured man wasn't on borrowed time. I did not expect Tomura to fail so utterly. The injured man remarked, watching the footage stolen from the hijacked USJ security system. A single teen, a first-year hero course student, had soundly dealt with Kurogiri, Nomu, and Tomura. The Verdette was not only powerful physically, but he clearly trumped every other pyrokinetic that the injured man had ever seen. The man had lived a very long time too, so that was saying something. Who is this boy? Midoriya Izuku, according to the class roster that was stolen along with the schedules. The old man informed the suit-wearing man, as he brought up the information, what little there was, on Izuku. A type hybrid, rare. The injured man commented. It wasn't often you saw one like this boy. What should we do going forward? The old man asked again. We were counting on Tomiura for your plan. Your quirk isn't compatible with most people. It's just too powerful. The strain even a weakened form of it puts on the body is often too much for others. Patience, doctor, we still have some time left to fix things. The injured man replied. This was followed by a coughing fit that saw some blood on the man's hand. His breathing was ragged afterwards as he lay back in his chair. We don't have that much time left. The doctor shook his head. My quirk won't prolong my life much longer. Your injuries aren't healing, even with the best of my treatments. If we don't find a compatible host soon, then our decades of planning will be for nothing. All the work we put into cloning quirks, all the advancements we've made, all the Nomu we've made, it'll all have been for nothing. The old doctor became frenzied at the ever-approaching time limit the two of them had. Be silent, Dr. Garaki, you're losing your composure. The injured man spoke sharply. I'm just concerned, all for one, that the decades we spend will go to waste if we both run out of time. Dr. Garaki exhaled heavily. Truly the weight of the years was beginning to wear heavily on the old man. We will find a compatible host, and then we will resume the plan quickly. All for one replied calmly. This is merely another speed bump in our path. We've dealt with plenty of those over the years. What's one more? I suppose you're right, Dr. Garaki compassed himself. If only I had been able to find the hyper-regeneration quirk before your battle with All Might. We cannot change the past, Doctor. All for one inhaled and exhaled a few times before he continued. We can only change the future, and change it we shall. I'll search the international quirk registries I have access to. Perhaps there we'll find someone compatible with All for One. We need a new host to bring about the fruition of our plans. Dr. Garaki began making his way towards his vast array of computers. Do so, Doctor, I have the utmost faith in you. All for one grinned as he lay back in his chair, and let the medicine ease the pain that was a constant in his body ever since the fight with All Might. UA High School Monday morning, Izuku and Toga made their way towards their classroom from the teacher's lounge. Izuku had turned in his two formal apologies and the essay for Nezu. Toga was still annoyed that Izuku was punished for making the USJ attack into a virtual non-incident. Izuku, for his part, had expected punishment and was fine with serving it. Even heroes weren't exempt from the consequences of their actions. When the two entered Class 1A's room they were quickly noticed. Dude. Midoriya, you're back. Kirishima smiled at his verdette buddy. Midoriya. Kaminari waved as he joined Kirishima in walking towards the couple. From there it was almost a deluge of his classmates coming to greet him. The other students repeatedly thanking him for his quick actions in dealing with real villains. Izuku took their praise as humbly as he could, like his parents had taught him, but even his cheeks were starting to turn red from the parade of thanks. Toga stifled her giggles as she held his hand through it all. Take your seats, class is about to start. Aizawa spoke up as he entered the room. Everyone was in their seats and attentive in seconds, prompting a nod from their teacher. Now we've gone over this before, but since Midoriya has rejoined us, I'll announce it again. The UA Sports Festival is coming up. Yes. Kirishima cheered with his fists raised in front of him. Let's go kick some ass. He was quieted by Kaminari's hand being shoved against his face. Wait a second. Kaminari protested. The blonde was clearly repeating something he'd already said before. Is it really such a good idea to still hold the sports festival after villains attacked? Kyoka questioned Aizawa, getting a nod from Kaminari. Izuku was willing to bet that this conversation had happened more than once already during his suspension. I mean, couldn't they attack again when even more people are packed into one place? Sero asked, and a few students looked questioningly towards Aizawa. The administration thinks this is a good way to show that the threat has been handled. That our school is safer than ever. Aizawa spoke in the tone of someone repeating the same words for the umpteenth time. Plus, they're increasing security compared to past years. This event is a huge opportunity for all students at UA. It's not something we can cancel because of a failed villain attack. Why not? It's just a sports festival. Mineta looked worried at the thought of another potential villain attack. Mineta, Izuku turned to look at the boy that sat behind him. Don't you know how important the sports festival is? Of course I do. Mineta responded while small beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. I just don't want to get murdered. The UA Sports Festival is one of the most watched events in the country. Aizawa spoke a bit louder to end their conversation. When it comes to competition between future heroes, the UA Sports Festival is #1 in Japan for viewership. That's right, Momo agreed from her seat behind Mineta. Top heroes from all over the country will be watching. This is an event where you can get scouted. Yeah, unless you're dead. Mineta retorted, still looking uneasy about the event. She's got a point though, Kaminari piped up with a grin. After graduation, a lot of people join pro agencies as a sidekick. Yeah, but that's as far as some people ever go. Kyoka glanced at the blonde. They missed their chance to go independent and stay eternal sidekicks. Actually, that's probably where you're headed. You're kinda dumb sometimes. Kairomaru practically pouted at the critique. It's true that getting scouted and joining a famous hero agency can get you more experience and even popularity. Aizawa admitted to the class of teens. That's why this festival matters. If you want to go pro one day, this event can open up doors for you. You get 1 chance a year, 3 chances in a lifetime. No aspiring hero can afford to miss this festival, which means you can't slack off in your lessons or training. Am I clear? Yes, sir. The class course. Several hours later, after their modern literature class with Cementis, the bell rang to signal the students' lunch break. Class 1 were naturally still talking about the upcoming sports festival. Some were excited, others were nervous, some didn't seem to care much, or were very good at hiding it. I am so pumped for this festival. Kirishima exclaimed, showing he was clearly part of the excited crowd. Heck yeah, if we put on a good show we're practically on the road to being pros. Zero grinned at the Redeed. He was also a part of the excited group. That's why we're all here in the first place, right? Sato grinned as he punched his right fist into his left palm. We get so few chances, so we have to make the most of this. Tokoyami agreed with the other guys. I'm kind of jealous, Shoji, your quirk is so unique you'll definitely stand out. Kaminari sighed as he looked at the Dupli arms user. Possibly, but what matters the most is to show the pros how useful I can be. Shoji replied as he waved off Kaminari's enviousness. Results were much better for getting scouted than just being noticeable. At least it was Shoji's take on the festival. No doubt you'll make a scene too. Kyoka snickered at Kaminari, reminding the electrification user of his dopey state. Kaminari grumbled at the ribbing. Everyone is so excited, Izuku. Toga beamed at her boyfriend. Of course, everyone wants to be pro heroes. The festival is their first shot to get scouted. Izuku smiled back at her, pulling her into a gentle hug. Toga. Midoriya. Let's do our best in the sports festival. Ichako had such a serious face that most of the class had to blink to make sure she was still the same Uraraka they knew. Everyone. I'm gonna do my best. Ichako threw her fist into the air. There seemed to be a pink aura of determination coming off of the girl. Yeah. Several students replied, throwing a fist into the air with the suddenly competitive brunette. I said I'm gonna do my best. Uraraka threw her fist into the air a second time. Ichako-chan, are you okay? Toga questioned with her head tilted to the side. She'd never seen her friend so competitive before. At lunch, Toga and Izuku found a quiet spot out in the courtyard together. The couple had taken their meals from the cafeteria and sat in the shade of a tree. They sat almost shoulder to shoulder as they ate, occasionally sharing bites of food with each other. The two were so absorbed with each other they didn't notice that many of their peers were glancing at the adorable scene. Several of the upper year girls were giggling or cooing at the couple. Quite a few other couples were doing much the same as Toga and Izuku on the lovely clear day. They're so adorable. A blue-haired girl commented to her friends as they sat a ways away from the first-year couple. Aren't they? So cute. Yes, now calm down and eat your lunch. A redheaded girl next to the brunette smiled. She was always so excitable, it was the cutest thing in the galaxy. I heard the verdette was the one that practically took care of the villain attack single-handedly. A muscular blonde teen mentioned after swallowing his food. He must be pretty strong. I can't imagine having to fight villains in the first month of being in high school. The navy-haired teen next to the blonde guy shook his head. I'd have panicked and frozen up completely. I already know it. He looked down at the blanket the four of them were sitting on. It almost seemed like a heavy, dark blue cloud had appeared over the teen's head. Hey now. The brunette girl practically sparkled as she spoke. None of that. You're third year now, so you've already passed that point, right? Right. Seriously, how can one of the top 3 in the school be such a downer on himself? The redhead questioned with a blink. Toga and Izuku were completely oblivious to all the scrutiny though. The couple were far too involved with each other as they finished their food and decided to cuddle. Toga happily cuddled into Izuku's chest and molded her body against his. Izuku responded by wrapping his arms around her and gently laying his head atop hers. The bell had just rung to signal the end of the day's last class. As Class 1 packed up their things over the next minutes, only a few noticed a muffled sound coming from the hallway outside. When Ichako opened the door to leave, she was met by a corridor full of other students. Why the heck are you all here? Ichako exclaimed, seeing the horde of students just staring at her and the rest of one through the open door. You all have some kind of business with our class. Iida questioned the large group. Why are you blocking our doorway? Are you trying to hold us hostage? Mineta demanded of the group. They're scouting out the competition, idiots. Bakugo sneered as he walked up to the door. We're the class that got attacked by real villains. They want to see us with their own eyes. A few students of Class 1 showed annoyance with Bakugo's normal abrasive attitude. Ichako frowned. Mineta pointed right at Bakugo while gaping at the rudeness. Izuku shook his head at the ash blonde, while Toga rolled her eyes at the jackass, as she thought of him. Well, at least now you all know what a future pro looks like. Bakugo stated straight to the faces of their fellow yearmates. Now move it, extras. Really? Izuku figured Bakugo's attitude was permanent nowadays. The explosion quirk user was always going to be like this. You can't just go around calling people extras just because you don't know who they are, Bakugo. Iida admonished the red-eyed teen while chopping the air with his right arm. So this is Class 1A. A purple-haired male student questioned as he made his way through the crowd. I heard you guys survived a real villain attack. But you just sound like an ass. The teen stared Bakugo dead in the eye as he called him out, and then continued as he finally got to the front of the crowd. Is everyone in the hero course delusional, or is it just you? How Bakugo growled as a vein became visible on his forehead. Several of the 1A students were shaking their heads and trying to wave the new person off before he made Bakugo explode. How sad to come here and find a bunch of egomaniacs. The guy rubbed the back of his head, his wild purple hair moving slightly from the motion. I wanted to be in the hero course, but like many others here I was forced to choose a different track. Such is life. Bakugo seemed to be getting angrier as the other teen continued to speak. I didn't cut it the first time around, but now I have another chance. If any of us do well in the sports festival, the teachers can decide to move us to the hero course. That means they'd have to transfer people out to make room. A few of the members of Class 1A stiffened up at that reminder. TSK. Bakugo looked a few seconds away from snapping entirely. Scouting the competition. Maybe some of my peers are, but I'm here to let you know that if you don't bring your very best, I'll steal your spot right from under you. Consider this a declaration of war. The teen stated plainly and clearly. I didn't put in all the extra work both before and after the entrance exams to lose to anyone that's not serious about being a hero. Where did this guy even come from? Was the thought running through most of Class 1A's minds. Hey. I'm from Class 1B. We heard you guys were attacked by some villains. I wanted to see what was up, but you're just a bunch of punks that think you're better than us, another new guy yelled as he pushed his way forward. He had long, chin-length, messy gray hair and black eyes which were tilted slightly inwards. The chai had very thick, jagged, tan-colored eyelashes that almost seemed to surround them when the teen's eyes were opened. He didn't appear to have any noticeable eyebrows, though, much like Hiroshima, he had sharp, pointed teeth. Damn it, everyone is going to hate our class now. Several of the Class 1A students screamed internally. That's a rather brash claim to make, isn't it? Izuku stepped forward, with Toga beside him. When did any of us say we thought we were better than you, exactly? Huh? The silver-haired loudmouth looked at Izuku blankly. He said we all thought we were better than your class, right? Izuku looked the other teen dead in the eye as he spoke. I'm curious as to how you came to that conclusion, considering none of us has said anything except for Bakugo being his normal, abrasive self. The other teen fumbled a bit, kicking up whispers and muttering from the crowd. The purple-haired teen that declared war was looking at Izuku with a raised eyebrow. You jumped to conclusions and made up your own mind. Toga spoke for the Class 1B student. She dealt with plenty of people doing that when they learned what a quirk was. Yeah, the other teen looked sheepish as he rubbed the back of his head. Look, that was my bad. I'm sorry I jumped to conclusions. I'm Tetsu from Class 1B. I wanted to come see Class 1A, but I lost my cool after hearing the blonde guy run his mouth. It's fine, Bakugo has a way of pissing off everyone around him when he opens his mouth. Toga chuckled mirthlessly. Fuck off. Bakugo shouted back as he stomped off through the crowd. Oh no, I made him upset. Toga overacted, badly, like she cared, and Izuku placed his hand on her shoulder to calm her down. Ha, so maybe you aren't all full of yourselves after all. The purple-haired guy spoke up with a sigh. But my declaration of war still stands. I will get into the hero course. One of those 40 seats is going to be mine by the festival's end. With that he turned and walked away, and the crowd of students began to disperse. Well, that was different. Achako mentioned, and the tension in Class 1A began to fade away as the students picked up their bags and left the room to head home. The sports festival is going to be fun. Toga giggled as she and Izuku walked towards the train station hand in hand. I'm looking forward to the competition. Izuku agreed as they walked. Maybe there would be other students that could challenge him. That would be great. Izuku needed some good training partners to push himself against, so that he could continue to improve. The next 2 weeks were spent taking every opportunity to train for almost every student that was in the hero course, or wanted to get into said course. The school's gym and track facilities saw a sharp uptick in use, though this happened every year around this time, so the teachers all got a chuckle out of it. Except Aizawa, he just rolled his eyes and went back to his current information gathering. Under Nezu's recommendation, Aizawa, Hisashi, and Imuri had been brought into the League of Villains case. As the hyper-intelligent Chimera had suspected, all three pros had been shocked, horrified, and then downright furious when they'd seen the results of Kurogiri's DNA tests. The three had immediately gone through everything that was known so far, and started getting in touch with their various contacts. Aizawa, as an underground hero, had several more contacts that watched over the back alley deals and other crimes that most pros rarely saw. The type of crime and the kind of criminals that stayed hidden and never brought attention to themselves. So far the Erasure hero hadn't found any leads that went anywhere. There was no talk of anyone going missing, no whispers of strange drugs or offers of quirk enhancement going around. It was odd. Those were the types of things that usually led to scummy, illegal underground operations for people desperate to strengthen their quirks. Aizawa had busted a fair number of them himself during his career. Usually trigger rings or some other quirk-enhancing drug that someone had tried to cook up. Nezu and Detective Tsukauchi had both been discreetly looking into doctors, both active and retired, that fit the profile of skills they'd built up with Recovery Girl's assistance. At the moment none of the people they'd looked into had any connection to the league that they could find. The detective's polygraph quirk was put to use often during the course of their investigation so far. They still had more than half the list to go, so they were hopeful to get a solid lead. But if they didn't, Nezu was already making backup plans and looking into other routes of investigation to find the truth. UA gym facility. Too slow, Izu. Toga laughed as she landed a punch against her boyfriend's left side. Had Toga been fighting with her preferred knives, that would have been a debilitating stab wound. Your evasion and speed have both definitely improved, Himiko-chan. Izuku praised the blonde as they sparred on one of the large padded spaces that UA had in their gym facilities. I haven't even taken your form for a boost either. Toga giggled as she swayed around a punch, kick, kick combo. One of her favorite battle tactics was to use some of the stored energy that a quirk turned blood into for her transformations, and then take on Izuku's form. Even without being able to use his quirks, her boyfriend was still impressively strong and fit. The added freak-out factor of seeing a teen girl suddenly turn into a muscular male teen and gain almost 15 centimeters in height was also tactically advantageous, as well as funny, in Toga's opinion. Well, at least the gym uniform is unisex, Izuku sighed as he blocked a kick and upset Toga's balance. He'd seen himself wearing Toga's clothes more times than he'd care to admit, honestly. Toga thought it was hilarious to walk around in his form wearing a skirt and a cute top. He wasn't as much of a fan. We have to wear the gym uniform while we participate in the sports festival, so I'll be able to use my quirk more freely too, since everyone is wearing the same outfit. Toga remarked as she rolled and then skipped up to her feet before retaking her stance. You're going to do amazing, Himiko-chan. Izuku assured as he closed the distance and engaged. I'll do my best, but you can't help me out, Izuku-kun. Toga shook her head as she ducked and weaved around his strikes. The blonde's footwork was a thing of beauty. The sports festival is a competition, so we'll be competing against each other. I'll remember. Izuku promised as he caught her arm. Good. Toga used his hold on her arm to jump up and land a double kick to his stomach. The blow didn't do much, but it did loosen his grip enough for her to escape. Man, those two are really going all out. Toru marveled as she and the other girls took a break. Toga even sparred with you and me before this. Mina shook her head before taking a drink from her water bottle. She plans to spar with me afterwards too. Achako looked on amazed as Toga and Izuku continued on with their spar. Their stamina is something to be admired. Momo agreed as she and Kyoka sat next to each other. Well, we'll just have to improve our own stamina then. Sue stated with her index finger on her cheek. I'm all for that. Kyoka breathed out as she got her hair trade under control. Training with you guys is showing me that I've neglected my physical training a bit too much. Oh, he caught her. Mina noticed Izuku catch Toga in a bear hug. How's she going to get out of this one? Achako leaned forward to watch. By kissing him, apparently. Toru burst into giggles as the group watched Toga's lips meet Izuku's. The couple quickly forgot about their spar as they kissed. Many cheeks went bright red as the girls of Class 1 watched on. Beginning of the sports festival. Man, I really wanted to wear my costume, Mina complained as the whole class was in their designated waiting room. Everyone was wearing the standard UA gym uniform for the festival. It's to keep things fair, Mina, Momo reminded the Pinkette. The other classes don't have costumes, so gym uniforms level the playing field, so to speak. Not counting each individual's advantage from their quirk. I wonder what the first round is gonna be this year. Sato pondered aloud as he distracted himself so that nerves wouldn't build up. The anticipation of not knowing is the worst. It doesn't matter what comes. We must face down whatever the organizers have set up to challenge us. Tokoyami replied with his eyes closed and arms crossed. He's right, we have to show that we can handle whatever comes our way like real heroes. Shoji agreed with Tokoyami as he sat at one of the tables. Is everybody ready? We'll be entering the stadium soon. Ida announced as he watched the clock. One by one the class stood up and prepared to head out to the field. It was time to prove their worth as future heroes. However, Todoroki approached Izuku who was quietly talking with Toga. Midoriya. The red and white-haired teen spoke up. Izuku turned to look at his classmate, while everyone else watched the two most powerful students in their class talk. What's up, Todoroki? Izuku questioned as he looked at the ice and fire user. He was still kind of bummed that Todoroki wouldn't practice pyrokinesis with him. Looking at things objectively, you and I are the strongest people in this room right now. You are probably a bit stronger than me, Todoroki stated bluntly, not caring about the rest of the class clearly hearing their conversation. Akugo bristled at the slight and looked half a second away from yelling at Todoroki. What about it? Izuku quirked his eyebrow at the other teen's words. Todoroki had barely said 2 words to him since their match during All Might's class. Regardless of your power, Todoroki continued to stare at Izuku. I am going to beat you. Everyone else in the room was rather shocked at the bold statement, particularly when it came so suddenly from one of the quietest members of their class. Didn't see this coming at all. Kaminari blinked, looking back and forth between Izuku and Todoroki. Some of the other students looked uneasy at this sudden declaration. Toga looked like she was debating whether to slap Todoroki or laugh in his face. Hey. Why are you trying to pick a fight now of all times? We're about to begin the festival. Kirishima tried to ease the tension that was building in the room. I welcome the competition, Todoroki. Izuku grinned at the two-tone boy. But you seem to be forgetting that you have far more competition than just me. If you let your focus rest solely on me, any one of them could pass you by in this festival. Every student in the room perked up at this indirect pep talk from the strongest member of their class. Except Bakugo that just quietly muttered about murdering them all in the festival and winning the whole thing. Mineta, who was the closest to the explosion quirk user, slid away from him quickly. That response was so manly, Midoriya. Kirishima fist pumped excitedly. There was a wide smile on his face. It's time to go. Everyone, let's make our way to the field in an orderly fashion. Iida declared as he marched to the door and left the room. He's always so stiff. Mina laughed brightly, and the remaining tension in the room vanished as Toga joined in the laughter. President Mick shouted from the booth, causing the crowd to cheer loudly. Make some noise, sports fans. Get those cameras prepped, media hordes. This year we're bringing you some of the hottest performances in sports festival history, guaranteed. I've only got one question before we start this show. Are you ready? Let me hear you make some noise as our students make their way to the big stage. How did I get roped into this? Aizawa grumbled from his seat next to President Mick. Time to welcome our students to the field. Mick announced loudly as the first years began to emerge from the tunnel and onto the field. Going in alphabetical order, we start with our 2 hero course classes. Give it up for Class 1 and Class 1B. The crowd exploded into cheers as Class 1 appeared along with Class 1B. After the news of the attack on the USJ broke, people had wondered how an attack by so many villains had been stopped by only 2 teachers and a single student. If the rumors were to be believed, of course. Damn, this place is completely packed. Sero mentioned it, seeing the massive crowd and all of the cameras flashing. Next up we have the students that keep UA High as one of the top 3 academic scoring high schools in Japan every year. There are general studies classes 1C, 1D and 1E. Look out, hero course. Some of them are looking to take your place in one of those 40 seats. President Mick hyped up the ground while praising the general studies students for their hard work. Izuku briefly noticed a few of the students start walking a bit taller at the pro's words. Some of our hero course students could learn a thing or two about grades from them. Aizawa spoke and a few of the hero course students from both classes flinched slightly. Now we have our talented students that produce the gear that gets things done. Support course classes 1F, 1G and 1H. Make some noise. Mick shouted as the support course students, some of them with their own self-made gear on, walked onto the field. Anyone that wants to go pro needs to make connections with support gear designers. Quality gear can be the deciding factor in the field. Aizawa remarked, and several of the support course students grinned. And last, but certainly not least, the ones who learn the ins and outs of our economy, and how to market the heroes and their causes. Business course classes 1I, 1J, and 1K. If you want to be an independent pro, you better make some friends here, hero course students. President Mick declared loudly as the crowd's energy kept building. The business course students smiled and chuckled at the pro's statements. He wasn't wrong though. Any pro that hoped to go independent in the mainstream of the hero industry better have some good marketing and representation. Many pros that became so-called eternal sidekicks did so because they failed to cultivate good working relationships with representation firms. That was actually a pretty fair introduction for all courses. A brunette girl from the general studies course mentioned just loud enough for Izuku to catch. With all of the first years gathered in the middle of the field, a loud crack caught their attention. From up on the stage appeared Midnight in all her voluptuous glory. Almost every man in the audience grinned or smiled at the beautiful pro. It's time for the opening speech. Midnight announced into the microphone with a grin. Please welcome this year's chief umpire for the first year tournament, the rated hero, Midnight. President Mick presented to the cheers of the crowd, especially the male section. What about the principal? One of the attendees asked another. He's always at the 3rd year stage, every year. The guy next to him answered back, not taking his eyes off Midnight. Someone might want to talk to Miss Midnight about what she's wearing. Kirishima mentioned with his cheeks slightly red. Yeah, that costume should definitely come with a warning label. Kaminari agreed even though he hadn't taken his eye off the pro since she appeared. Teenage hormones were a powerful thing. Is that really appropriate apparel for a high school sports festival? Tokoyami questioned as the pro prepared to start the festival properly. A few of Class 1 noticed Mineta giving a very enthusiastic thumbs up. He was also staring hard at Midnight as if trying to grope her with his eyes. Silence, everyone. Midnight yelled, whipping the air to get everyone's attention. For the student pledge we have Midoriya Izuku of class 1A. Every eye turned to the verdette teenager. Izuku knew this was because he had scored the highest during the entrance exam. So this was at least expected. Toga nudged him forward, and Izuku gave her a warm smile. As he walked towards the stage he heard the murmuring of the crowd. As he headed to the microphone, Midnight gave him a gentle nod of support. I'm pleased to be representing my fellow first-year students. Izuku gave a nod to the crowd of students on the field. I know that some of you are really into this event, while others of you are gunning for one of the 40 seats in the hero course. To both groups I say this, let's have some fun. But to those that are after one of our seats, a different message. Bring your best. We earned our seats in the entrance exam. If you wish to take them from us, then earn your seat here and now at the sports festival. We all welcome the competition. Let's all push each other higher towards our goal of being heroes. The crowd exploded into raucous applause at the short speech. Cheering and cries of motivation rang out from the crowd. Midnight squealed and hugged herself from the youthful passion as she called it. Even all of the first-year students began to clap for Izuku's words. With a short bow, Izuku walked back down the stairs towards his class and his girlfriend. What a pledge. If that hasn't roused your spirit and fired you up, you must already be dead. President Mick blasted out through the speakers. With that awesome pledge and the spirit of competition blazing, let's reveal our first event for this year's sports festival. Get your foot off the desk. Aizawa's voice was barely heard as the crowd continued to roar and cheer. Time to find out the first game of the festival. Midnight cried out as a display lit up behind her and began spinning through options. This is when our students start experiencing the pressure for the first time. This year's first event is. The display stopped on the words obstacle race. An obstacle race. Midnight cracked her whip while giving a somewhat sadistic smile. Here we go. President Mick yelled loudly while all the students looked on at their first event. Now the sports festival had started for real. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.